Adopted.
Moving on to item number 8, policy for naming and renaming of parks, recreation features, or public spaces. Turn over City Manager Ron Bernal.
Thank you, Mayor Wright, members of the City Council. The city currently does not have a policy for naming and renaming parks, recreation features, or public spaces. And so our Parks and Recreation Director, Nancy Kaiser, has taken it upon herself to work on a policy, take it through the Parks and Recreation Commission, and now to yourselves for consideration. So Nancy will provide you information on what that process involved.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. During the last 5 years, the city has had the opportunity to renovate, upgrade, and improve a few playgrounds here in our parks. And also the city has approved new development, which is beginning to launch itself here in Antioch with groundbreaking. And as we move through the next few years, you're going to see a lot of activity. And as a matter of fact, Aviano, which is broken ground and is grading and so forth, includes a park acreage and park addition that will extend the current Chaparral Park and build new parks. So as we head into this phase of new and exciting development, you know, the question has come up, well, how are we going to name these parks? What has the city done previously? And upon some research, discovered that we had very little information. The known information that we discovered pre-2019, I've labeled it as such because that was it, one page, located in a staff report before Commission and City Council. That's all the information we could find. So before you this evening is an opportunity to approve a new policy moving forward, and that provides, you know, an opportunity for the community to be involved and identifies a groundwork and a platform of which to, you know, name new parks and new recreation amenities that may come into our community, but also any opportunity to rename as we move forward with redevelopment and improving our existing park system. And, you know, the purpose of creating a policy is to establish that guideline for naming our community assets and sharing that information with the public so that they can be involved in the naming process. The Parks and Recreation Commission reviewed this draft policy on Thursday, August 15th. Members of the commission expressed support for the new policy, and they were specifically interested in the policy that addresses preventing duplication. They did note that we have a number of amenities today existing in Antioch that have similar names. So we have a lot of Contra Loma things named. We have Mira Vista Park and Mira Vista Hills Park, and we do get a lot of confused residents that call asking for help and clarification. So we address that in the policy, as well as you know, some key priorities, with the first one being addressing the geographic location that our new amenities are located in, then looking at natural features, person or community group, and providing some guidelines for all of these elements that we might want to include in naming our parks, recreation amenities, and public spaces. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about the draft policy before you this evening.
Are there any public comments on this item?
None received.
Thanks, Arnie. Any questions or comments?
I do.
Go ahead.
Councilmember Thorpe.
Yeah, so on the requirements may result as a stipulation of a donation of land or significant monetary contribution. Why isn't it just a requirement? Why are we leaving it optional?
The best example that we have to demonstrate that item in the policy as a guideline exists right here in our Antioch Community Center. We have a number of rooms and spaces in this community center that are named or honoring a donation. We have a plaque as you enter the community center that recognizes corporations and companies that contributed. So it, you know, it may not happen. I believe it was something that was part of this project for whatever purposes when the city built the community center, whether it was budgetary or whether they wanted to include the community, went out and you know, sought sponsorship. So it's there as an opportunity, and if we, you know, if we come across that within the community, we have an opportunity then to include a naming possibility and opportunity with the donor. So not necessarily a requirement, but it, you know, may or may not happen based upon what we may be developing in the future.
Right.
Councilmember Ogerchuk.
In my last...
I knew there was more. I could see the wheels going round and round.
So And it's not about about the policy, but just in general, as we think through, we name a lot of things for different people and all that good stuff, and I like this, but also we don't pay a lot of tribute to those who are way, way before any Smith brothers or anything, and that's the Miwok Indians, and so we should do a better job of also kind of recognizing Native people who are here way before we were, just generally.
Thank you. Yes, we did incorporate that into the policy and the guidelines in addressing the indigenous component of our community.
You saw? Well, I believe you.
I'm going to move on. Can I?
Councilmember Ogorchak.
It was funny because I read the same thing, but then if you read the full sentence on that significant contribution to the park, recreation department, or community as a whole, so improving the quality of life in Antioch. So it doesn't mean a monetary contribution only. So
Correct.
I too got a little hooked on that one, but I'm going to make a motion. The City Council approve the policy for naming and renaming of parks, recreation features, or public spaces. And I do appreciate all the work that you've put into this, Nancy. Thank you.
We have a motion by Councilmember Ogorchak. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Wilson.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The policy is adopted.
Thank you.
Moving